What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and I think I found a direct connection between Luffy and the Lunarians. A connection which explains why Luffy has fire-based powers, what Gear 5 really is, and why the Lunarians practically became extinct in the first place. I believe that Luffy possesses Lunarian DNA, but it's not what you think. Before we get into it, thanks to Kuni for sponsoring this video. If you guys watch this channel regularly, then you know that I've been raving about the new game Kuni Crossworld. This is a beautiful new Studio Ghibli styled RPG from Netmarble that literally just launched. The game allows you to basically live inside a Studio Ghibli movie. It features stunning visuals, exciting gameplay, and even beautiful select tracks by the legendary Joe Hisaishi, who is famous for his work with Studio Ghibli. I was lucky enough to get early access to the game, and I freaking loved it. Amazing soundtrack, beautiful aesthetics, plus it's an MMO that you can play on mobile and PC. It's crossplay. You can join together with other players and create and expand your kingdoms. You can compete with other kingdoms in various PvP modes. You can even fight for the title of the best kingdom on a server against rival kingdoms. Seriously, what more could you ask for in a game? This game is going to be massive, and it's easily my favorite RPG of 2022. Check it out for yourself. Just click that top link in the description to start playing right now. You won't regret it. I was honestly so impressed as soon as I started playing. I can't get enough of the Studio Ghibli vibes, so click that link in the description. Finally, this video will contain One Piece manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. Okay, so ever since we got the big reveal about the existence of the Lunarian race, people have been speculating about the possibility that Luffy could be connected to the Lunarians. There is a very interesting video on this topic from over 4 months ago by Marshall D. Preach, and that video makes some great points that I will talk about later on. At first, I didn't pay too much attention to this theory, just because Luffy clearly wasn't born with white hair and black wings. So I thought there was no way that he could turn out to be a Lunarian. But as I was working on a previous video about the original Joy Boy's secret origins, I realized that Luffy might really possess Lunarian DNA, but not through his family tree or bloodline. Luffy possesses Lunarian DNA because the original Joy Boy was a Lunarian, and his Lunarian DNA or Lineage Factor was passed on to Luffy through the Nika Devil Fruit. We know that all life forms possess a lineage factor, and if you manipulate that lineage factor from a young age, the growth of the life form can be altered. We also know that consuming a devil fruit actually alters a person's lineage factor, and that is what allows them to gain new incredible abilities that seem to violate the laws of physics. Furthermore, the lineage factor of devil fruit users and even animals can be used to create artificial devil fruits, as both Dr. Vegapunk and Caesar Clown have done. Sanji's father, Vinsmoke Judge, was even able to manipulate the lineage factor of fetuses in order to turn them into super soldiers, and he is also able to create clone soldiers for Germa 66. All of this tells us that the lineage factor plays a major role in the One Piece world. And I believe that there is one other important role that it has been playing all along, but we just hadn't connected the dots yet. After Sabo consumes Ace's former devil fruit, the Metamera no Mi, it is implied that he inherited more than just Ace's power. There seems to be something of Ace's still within the fruit, and Sabo has inherited that something since his actions and mannerisms seem to become more similar to Ace's after he eats the fruit. We don't know what exactly this something is, and a lot of people have just called it Ace's will. But what do we actually mean by a will, and how would a will reside within a devil fruit? It all starts to make sense only when we remember the lineage factor. I believe that when someone consumes a devil fruit, it is not just their lineage factor that is altered by the devil fruit. The lineage factor of that devil fruit user also has an effect on the devil fruit itself. And ultimately, the user's own lineage factor becomes imprinted upon the devil fruit. So once the user dies and the devil fruit is reincarnated, some part of the former user remains within the devil fruit in the form of the former user's lineage factor. That is what happened with Sabo. When he consumed the reincarnated Metamera no Mi, he also consumed some of Ace's lineage factors, some of his DNA. And that is why his behavior became more similar to Ace's. It's kind of like that phenomenon in the real world when organ transplant recipients begin exhibiting some personality traits of the organ's original owner. Now, in my video about Joy Boy's true origins, I argued that the original Joy Boy from 800 years ago was actually a Lunarian. I also said that the ancient kingdom which fought against the alliance that became the world government was the Lunarian homeland that sat atop the Red Line. Before Marijois even existed, the Red Line was inhabited by a race of godlike creatures known as the Lunarians. They had large black wings which allowed them to fly, they had the ability to generate and manipulate fire, and they had superhuman physical resilience. I believe that the Lunarians were ultimately defeated during the Void Century, and their place as the gods who live atop the Red Line was usurped by the Celestial Dragons. They then proceeded to build Marijois on top of the ruins of the ancient kingdom's capital in an attempt to erase the ancient kingdom from history. The Celestial Dragons became the new gods of the Red Line after driving the former gods, the Lunarians, to the brink of extinction. Even today, 800 years after the Great War that took place during the Void Century, the world government still actively hunts Lunarians, and they offer large cash rewards for any information that would lead to the capture of a Lunarian. This seems like an oddly excessive policy by the world government. If the Lunarians are practically extinct and if they had been forced off the Red Line 800 years ago, then why go to all that trouble just to capture every Lunarian? Sure, Lunarians are powerful, but so are the giants and many other races in One Piece. There has to be some reason why the world government feels especially threatened by Lunarians, and why they are so adamant on capturing them, experimenting on them, and eventually eliminating them. As I mentioned earlier, my hypothesis is that the original Joy Boy was a Lunarian who possessed the Nika Devil Fruit. And this is why the world government is so obsessed with hunting down both the Lunarians and the Nika Devil Fruit. They may have believed that Joy Boy would one day return as another Lunarian, so along with hunting the Nika Devil Fruit, they also decided to hunt down every Lunarian. At the same time, if there is one devil fruit that the world government would really love to recreate artificially, it is definitely the Nika Devil Fruit. And if the Nika fruit had originally belonged to a Lunarian, then it makes sense that King would be experimented on inside the same research facility as Kaido, whose own devil fruit was artificially recreated by Vegapunk in that facility. And speaking of King, he is the only Lunarian whom we've actually met in the story, and of course he knew the legend of Joy Boy. He believed that Joy Boy would one day return to change the world. If the original Joy Boy had been a Lunarian, then the legend of Joy Boy had likely been passed down from generation to generation among the remaining Lunarians. And if this were the case, then King wouldn't even need to have any knowledge of the poneglyphs in order to know about Joy Boy. He would have heard the legend of Joy Boy from his own family when he was still a child. Now back to the Nika Devil Fruit. If my theory is correct, and the lineage factor of former users can be imprinted on a devil fruit and then passed on to the next devil fruit user, this would explain so much about devil fruits in general and about Luffy's abilities in particular. Why do devil fruits appear to have a will of their own? Because that will comes from the lineage factor of former users. Why did Sabo inherit some of Ace's traits? Because he consumed some of Ace's lineage factor. Why did Luffy have fire-based powers like Red Hawk and Red Rock, even though his devil fruit gave his body the properties of rubber, which has nothing to do with fire? Because the original Joy Boy's Lunarian lineage factor modified Luffy's body when he consumed the Nika Devil Fruit. Why does Luffy's hair turn white in Gear 5? Again, because the original Joy Boy's lineage factor modified Luffy's body to give him this Lunarian trait. Even the mystery of the ancient kingdom's name may have just been solved by this theory. Why is just the name of the ancient kingdom so dangerous that Clover was killed before he could say it out loud? Because that name was probably something like Lunaria or the Red Line Kingdom. And so just knowing that name would instantly tell you that the Celestial Dragons are usurpers, frauds. That the true and rightful rulers of the Red Line are not Celestial Dragons but Lunarians, and that Marijua was likely built on top of the ancient kingdom's Lunarian capital in order to hide the truth about who the original gods of the Red Line are. There is a lot more to be considered here, and as I said earlier, in one of his videos, Marshall D. Preach went into great detail about how Luffy's Lunarian connection was foreshadowed very early on in the story. Preach points out that Luffy's unusually high resistance to fire was established as early as Little Garden, where we see that Luffy is able to withstand being extremely close to a massive fire while trying to rescue his friends from Mr. Three's wax. Luffy doesn't even complain about the heat of the fire that he was using to melt the wax. But Mr. 3, who is right there close to Luffy, is screaming in pain because of the fire, and he sprints away from it as quickly as possible. Now, Mr. 3 is literally a candle man who produces flames from his hair while using his devil fruit powers. So you would think that this guy's body would be more resistant to fire than Luffy's, and yet that clearly doesn't seem to be the case. Preach also mentions other details, like Luffy's quick recovery from being frozen solid by Aokiji, and the incident from chapter 1002 of the manga. In this chapter, we see Big Mom hitting Luffy with a lightning attack, but it doesn't affect him because he's made of rubber. I mean, that part makes sense, but then right after that, Kaido hits Luffy with Blast Breath. And Kaido is shocked to see that his flame attack doesn't seem to work on Luffy either. We never learned why exactly this was the case, but I think that we now finally know what's actually going on here. I will of course link Preach's video down in the description so you can check it out. It goes into a lot of additional details that I can't go into here. The point is that all of these little details finally begin to make perfect sense if we accept that the original Joy Boy was Lunarian, that his lineage factor was somehow imprinted on the Nika devil fruit, and that Luffy then inherited some of that lineage factor when he consumed the fruit as a child. So, along with the properties of rubber that he gained from the devil fruit itself, Luffy also inherited some of Joy Boy's Lunarian traits, such as the ability to resist and create fire, such as the ability for his hair to turn white in Gear 5, and so on. I've always felt that the introduction of the Lunarian race this late in the story would have an important purpose. And I don't mean just in terms of general world building, but also in terms of the plot itself. If I am right that the original Joy Boy was a Lunarian, that the ancient kingdom was the Lunarian kingdom atop the Red Line, and that Luffy inherited Lunarian traits through Joy Boy's lineage factor, then everything begins to add up, and the introduction of the Lunarian race at this stage of the story suddenly isn't just an interesting world building detail, it's an outright necessity for the plot. Let me know what you guys think. Does Luffy possess Lunarian genetic traits because of the original Joy Boy's lineage factor? Was the ancient kingdom actually the Lunarian kingdom atop the Red Line? Was Marijua built on the exact location of the former Lunarian capital in order to erase this kingdom's culture and architecture from history? Don't forget to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I really love hearing from you. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy our videos and you want to see more in the future, just leave a like and comment. It only takes a second, but it really helps us with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you're new here or maybe you watch the channel but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. Subscribing is a completely free but really important way of directly supporting the channel. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. Thanks again to Kuni Crossworld for sponsoring this video. Check it out, link in the description. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.